Hello everyone, welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we'll be learning how to add rare components to the component list, right? In the last lecture, when we're talking about the simulation basis manager, I showed you how to add components from the Hysys DataBanks, right? But in this lecture, I'll show you how to add more components that are quite rare, right? So now, for example, most people use the Hysys DataBanks to add components to their process, which is just you clicking on add, right? When your component list is highlighted, you just click on add and then you add components from this section, right? Either you click on them or you search for them, right? But from this particular source, you may not find all the components you are looking for, right? You may not find all of them. So this video will try to help you search for components better, help you know how to search for components better, right? Components that are not quite popular, right? So for this tutorial, we'll be using some examples. Now, these are the components I'll try to add from the Hysys DataBanks, right? So in the last video, I showed you that we had two ways to add components, or two sources, which is the Hysys DataBanks and then the Aspen properties. So currently we're in the Hysys DataBanks, right? Now, from here, we want to add these four components to our process. Now, if you go back, let's search for the first one, this one. You have N-icosane, right? N-icosane. Okay, N-icosane is actually here, right? Okay, so it can be added from this Hysys DataBanks. Okay, fine. Now, well, that's for that one, but not all of them can actually be found there. Like this one, the benzothiophene, right? The benzothiophene. Now, if you search for it in the Hysys DataBanks, you may not find it there. Benzothiophene. Right, so it says no. Let me spell it properly. Benzothiophene, right? The benzothiophene is not there. Benzothiophene. Let me try using the formula. To see if I'll find it. Benzothiophene is C8H6S, right? Let me look at it properly. C8H6S, right? So I can't find benzothiophene here. What you have here is thionaphthene, right? But that's not what I'm looking for. They may have the same chemical formula, but they may not have the same structure, right? So I'm specifically looking for benzothiophene. Now, I'll go back and add a separate component list, right? That does not have to do with the Hysys DataBank, right? So, okay, let me use a new case for that. Let me use a new case for this instead. So to avoid confusion, so I'll use the Aspen properties database instead, right, to search for these components. So now I want to use the Aspen properties to add components. So I click on the drop down that is beside add and click on Aspen properties. So it creates a component list for me via the Aspen properties DataBanks instead of the Hysys DataBanks, right? So the Hysys DataBanks is different from the Aspen properties DataBank, right? So from here now, I can easily search for any component I'm looking for. So for example, if I want to search for benzothiophene, I'll just type it there in the search bar, benzothiophene, right? And then I'll press enter on my keyboard. It says benzo, okay, I didn't spell it properly. Let me spell it again. Benzothiophene. And I press enter. Okay, so the benzothiophene is in the Aspen properties databank, but it's not in the Aspen Hysys database, right? So for benzothiophene, you see the properties. Once you have added it to the component list, you can double click to check the property of that particular substance or component, right? So you can just double click on it once it has been added to the component list, and then you see the properties of that particular component, right? So this is benzothiophene, right? But you can't find it in the Hysys DataBanks, right? In this case, we use the Hysys DataBanks and we couldn't find benzothiophene. So now I'm using the Aspen property database to look for it, right? So the other components we had was we had icosane. So let's just add them. Icosane, and you can just type in the search bar and click enter, right? So once you click enter, it adds that component to the component list. Then you have N-docosane, right? And then the last one is let me check. The last one is OOS, right? This OOS is a kind of triacylglycerol. Is in the triacylglycerol group, right? So if you want to search for it, you just type OOS there. You type OOS and click enter. Now it says the compound OOS is not available from the selected databanks, right? So now this Aspen properties databanks, right, has a set of databases it uses to search for components to determine whether that component is embedded in the Hysys database or not, right? So when you search for a component and you get that message, what you do is, when you get this message, what you do is you come to this place, this form here or tab where you have enterprise database. You click on it, right? And then you check the selected databases, right? You check it to know if that particular compound you are looking for or component can be found in those selected databases, right? So for example, this is a triacylglycerol which is involved in the biodiesel process, right? Biodiesel process. So for example, you can check if the selected data banks has any data bank that has to do with biodiesel, right? So for example, in this case, the biodiesel data bank is not part of the selected data banks because it is in the installed data bank section, right? So now if you want to add it to the selected data banks, you click on it and then you click the arrow, right? So now it is added to the selected data banks. Now when the search starts again, when you start searching for that particular component, you will now be able to search through this particular data bank that has been added to see whether you will find that component there, right? So when the software is searching for components, in summary, when the software is searching for components in this Aspen property data banks, it will search from only the selected data banks, right? It will not search from the installed data banks. So if you want it to search a particular data bank, you have to highlight it and make sure that it is selected, right? For the software to be able to search it for that particular component, right? So if it's not selected, the software, even though it is part of the data banks, the software will not be able to search for that component in that particular data bank. So whenever you want to search a particular data bank for any component, you click on it and then you click on the arrow, so that when the software starts searching, it will be able to search for it, for that component inside that particular data bank, right? So now we have selected the biodiesel data bank, right? The APV 110 biodiesel. Now, if you search for that OOS, right, I think it should be able to be found now, right? So I'll click on this again and type OOS and then click enter. Okay, it still says the compound OOS is not available. Now, what I'll do is I'll click on find, right? I'll click on find. Then I'll now search for it again. So the name of the compound I'm looking for contains OOS as the name, right? So when I search for OOS in this find compounds, I'm able to find tag OOS, and this is exactly what I'm looking for. So I click on it and then I click add selected compounds, right? So once you click add selected compounds, you exit and it's added to the component list, right? So that's it, tag OOS. So this is what we are looking for, C57H10606-4, right? If you check the formula, C57H10606-4. So in case you are confused about what I've been saying, I will recap a little bit. Now, we had some compounds from our component list that we could not find in the Hysys data banks, right? So we opted for the Aspen properties data banks instead, right? So, and the basic way of adding components here is to just click on search, right? Just click on search and type the name of the component into that search bar and press enter, right? If it's easily found, it will be automatically added to your component list directly, right? If it's not found, you will get the message that it cannot be found, right? At that point, what you need to do is to go to the enterprise database, right? And search for the particular group where you will find that component. Now, if you don't know the group where to find that component, what you can do is to highlight all the groups and add them to the selected data banks. Now, what I mean is, you click on the first group on the list, you left click on it, then you scroll down to the last, right? You hold your shift on your keyboard and click on the last one. So it highlights everything, right? Let me go back again. You click on the first, you left click on the first, you scroll down, you hold down your shift on your keyboard, and then you click the last. It highlights everything. Now, when you have highlighted everything, you click on the arrow, right? So it adds all the installed data banks into the selected data banks, right? So when the software is now searching for that component, it is going to search all of them. So in case for a scenario where you don't know which group that component falls under, right? In the case of the OOS, I knew it was under biodiesel, right? I knew that was why I chose biodiesel. But if you don't know, right, it's better to just highlight everything and add them to the selected data banks and then go back and search. You can search. I think searching with the find is more accurate, right? So you just click on search, you click on find, find compounds, and then you type the name of the compound, right? You can either use the begins with, the contains, or the equals, any of them, right? So just type the name of that compound here, and then click on find now, right? So once you click on find now, if the compound is available, it will appear in this bar right here, right? It will appear in this bar. Then if it's not, it will tell you that the compound was not found, right? So that is how to add rare components that are difficult to find in Aspen Hysys. Once you are done adding your components from the Aspen properties database, now to add your fluid package, you click on fluid package and then use the drop down and click on Aspen properties. Right, so when you click on Aspen properties, it creates the fluid package list for you and automatically adds the first fluid package on the list, right? So you will now do well to choose the particular fluid package you want to use, right? Now, if you want to search for more, because this is not a complete fluid package list, you go to the property package filter. If you want to check for more fluid packages in the Aspen properties database, you go to the property package filter, right? The filter is currently on common. You change it to whichever one you want. There are a lot of them. There is oil and gas. There are a lot of them. The Hysys, metal, power, refinery, water. So, but me, I like using the all, right? So when the filter is on all, it gives you all the fluid packages in the Aspen properties database. So you can now choose properly the one you want, right? Now, one thing about this Aspen properties database is that it doesn't, I personally think it doesn't tell you which fluid package is compatible with the components, right? So if you click on any of them, you will just get the OK message automatically. So whenever you are using this Aspen properties database, I would suggest that you are sure of the exact fluid package you want to use, right? And then you select it before you enter the simulation environment. Before entering the simulation environment. Then this one is the Hysys DataBanks, the initial search we did, right? So now, if you want to add fluid package based on the fact that you use the Aspen Hysys DataBanks to add component lists, you click on fluid package, right? And you click on add. So automatically it selects the Hysys DataBanks, right? By the time you just click on add without using the drop down, but you can also use it if you want, right? So when you click on add, the fluid package list from the Hysys DataBank appears, and then you can select whichever one you want to make use of, right? So if you want to use Peng Robinson, you click on it and then it will give you the OK message. Now, if you click on a fluid package that is not compatible with your components, you will get a message, right? When you are using the Hysys DataBanks. When you are using the Hysys DataBanks, if you click on a fluid package that is not compatible with your components, you will get a message and it will show you the exact components or components that are not compatible with that fluid package. So either you remove the components, which is practically impossible because those components are involved in that process, or most likely you would have to change the fluid package to a more suitable fluid package for that process. One last thing before we end this lecture. Now, when you use the Aspen properties data banks to add components, you must use the Aspen properties data banks to add fluid package, right? When you use the Aspen properties data banks to add components, you must also use the Aspen properties data banks to add fluid package, right? Let's go back to the other one, the one where we use the Aspen Hysys. Here we use the Hysys data banks in this first example, where we couldn't find thiobenzene or benzothiophene, right? In the case where, let me see, okay, benzothiophene, right? Let's go back. So in the case where we couldn't find benzothiophene, we used the Hysys data banks. That was what we used to search for the components, right? Now, in a case where you use the Hysys data banks to add components, you must use the Hysys, highlight this, you must also use the Hysys data banks to add fluid package, right? So Aspen properties data banks for components works with Aspen Hysys data banks for fluid package, and Hysys data banks for components works with Hysys data banks for fluid package. So you use them for both components and fluid package. If you are using Hysys components, then you use Hysys fluid package. If you are using Aspen properties components, you use Aspen properties fluid package. Right? So don't mix that up, because it's very important when you are specifying your components. And with this, we have come to the end of this video. Hope you gain some knowledge, right? Subsequently, we'll still be talking about features in this simulation basis manager, right? So if you have questions on this particular lecture, if there's something that is not clear to you, kindly drop your observations in the comment section. Then like this video, share with your friends, subscribe to the channel for future notifications. Thank you for joining me, and have a good day.